What if I told you that the secret to solving some of today's biggest business challenges isn't hiding in a spreadsheet, but in a 500-year-old painting? We're about to dive into how the methods of a Renaissance master can help us ditch rigid blueprints for a much more creative, layered way of thinking about strategy.
So let's just get right to it. Can an artist from half a millennium ago really have anything to teach us about business strategy today? You might be thinking, no way. But the answer is a pretty surprising and honestly, a resounding yes. See, it's not about the paint. It's all about the process. It's a completely different way of seeing and solving complex problems.
So let's start with this idea of painting your business strategy. We're going to look at Leonardo's process not as a way to create art, but as a dynamic model for innovation, especially for those times when the path forward is anything but clear.
You see, Leonardo's genius wasn't some single flash of inspiration, not at all. It was a process. It started with a rough sketch, the big initial idea. Then, he'd build with layers, adding complexity and depth. And finally, and this is the crucial part, he would refine and blend everything, constantly testing and tweaking until it was just right.
Now, that final blending stage is where the real magic happened. And it had a name, his signature technique, Sfumato. It's Italian for smoke. Think of it like applying countless, almost invisible layers of glaze. And what was the point? To get rid of all the harsh outlines, to create these incredibly soft, hazy transitions. This is so key to the whole idea.
Okay, so how does this translate to modern strategy? Well, it's actually a pretty direct one-to-one. The rough sketch, that's your core idea, your main vision. Building layers, those are your small-scale experiments, your pilot programs. And Sfumato? Well, that's the relentless process of refining and adapting based on what you learn, blending the successful parts together until the failures just fade away. Now, this isn't just some neat theory. This artistic, adaptive way of thinking has actually been a secret weapon for leaders during the most extreme crises you can imagine, times when a clear blueprint for success just did not exist.
Just think about the spring of 1940. In a matter of weeks, Britain went from having allies to standing completely alone against what looked like an unstoppable force. The situation was beyond grim, the future was a total unknown, and there was absolutely no master plan for what to do next. This quote from historian Lawrence Freedman is just so revealing. Churchill, who was a painter himself, didn't see strategy as some rigid science. He saw it as an art. He instinctively knew that victory couldn't be planned out in some single, perfect blueprint. It had to be discovered, layer by layer, one small decision at a time.
So this leaves us with two totally different ways of doing things. On one hand, you've got the old way, the rigid, top-down master plan. And on the other, you've got the Leonardo way, a strategy that's all about adaptation, learning from small moves, and allowing the final picture to emerge over time.
But wait, how do you know which layers to add, and how do you know how to blend them? Well, for that, you need something more. You need a deep, almost obsessive level of understanding. See, Leonardo didn't just paint what he saw on the surface. He painted from the inside out.
And just how deep did this obsession go? Well, to truly understand and capture the perfect enigmatic smile for his Mona Lisa, Leonardo went to a place very, very few people would ever dare to go. He studied the dead.
Yep, you heard that right. Biographer Walter Isaacson talks about how Leonardo would spend his nights in a morgue, literally peeling the flesh from cadavers just to see exactly which muscles and nerves create a smile. Now, this wasn't morbid. It was just a relentless burning curiosity to understand how things truly work, right down to the most fundamental level. That, right there, is the foundation of a masterpiece.
This kind of deep curiosity also kind of forces us to challenge our whole modern obsession with speed. In a world that's all about finishing projects fast, Leonardo's process really makes us stop and rethink what it means to be productive.
16 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how long the Mona Lisa was a work in progress. He started it in 1503, and he was still refining it when he died in 1519. For him, this wasn't some project with a deadline. It was a lifelong exploration.
In fact, and get this, he never actually delivered the painting to the person who paid for it. He kept it with him for the rest of his life. Why? Because every single time he had a new insight about light, about geology, about human anatomy, he would go back to that panel and add another impossibly thin layer of glaze. The painting was his living journal, a canvas for his evolving understanding of the world.
So this all brings us to one final, crucial question for you to think about. Look at your own work, your own strategy. Are you just following a rigid blueprint, basically crossing your fingers and hoping the world doesn't change? Or are you creating a masterpiece in progress, one that evolves, adapts, and gets deeper and richer with every new layer of insight? Because, as Leonardo showed us, that choice is everything.